Ah, isn't he good? Yeah, so blessed. I was going to do this after, but I'm feeling the mood to do this now. Okay. So, we are so amazingly blessed. You know, I always marvel at what it takes to do church. And it seems like I've been doing this since before there was dirt. So I have some experience with how all of this works. But each of us, as Bill was saying, each of us plays a role in some part of this. And that's all we ask. We don't ask you to give everything. We just give you your part. And because we do this amazing thing with very little money, but we run a corporation, in essence, that has a marketing department and an administrative department and a personnel department and has a outreach, it has this whole thing going on in a building. And so it is such a blessing to have a building, right? Mm-hmm. And I remind myself of that when a tree falls over on Friday night and knocks out the lamps that are in the parking lots. What a blessing that we have a building. And more importantly, that we have a ground crew, as I like to call them. So I want to acknowledge something today, because these people are awesome. Now, this is a thank you card from our school that is behind us, which is one of the joys of this whole community as far as I'm concerned. They have this wonderful outdoor school, and so they wanted to thank us for all our hard work to fix their ramp. And so can I invite Doug, and I'm going to give this to you in honor, Doug and Martin and Chris, and I think you've been part of that. Whoever's part of that, helping out with the ground, just stand up, let us acknowledge you. Thank you. And if that wasn't enough to keep the place beautiful, which would cost us an amazing amount of money if we had to hire all that out, then when Uncle Marty says, I have this idea, they all get this look like, oh God, So they put all of this sound system together, climbed around, did the thing, did the new lighting, tore that down. And so, they don't do windows, but otherwise they're perfectly complete, and I just want to express my gratitude. Because from my vantage point, I get to see all of the stuff that goes on here, and it's exciting, it's wonderful. And so I'm just grateful, and I usually don't like to single out, because then I'm like, well, why do you do this? But we'll get to you. I'm just grateful for everybody and what they do and how they do it, because it's a beautiful thing that we're creating together. I'm also grateful that we live in a time when we are getting to grow spiritually. Now, there's a level of choice around that, as there is with everything. Because you could look at the times in which we live and think, this is a perfectly good time to be miserable. And that's an option. This is a perfectly good time to whine and complain and do that. Or it's a perfectly good time to go deeper. To realize that my life is an outpicturing of who I am. Now, I don't get to control everything that happens in the world, and that's a good thing. I mean, I have a hard time even keeping this group kind of going in the direction of imagine. They let me loose on the world. But that we're in this time of tremendous change, I believe, and I sense it and feel it. I'm sensing and feeling that people are really longing to have a deeper experience of the divine. And what I also know is that many of us who have been in this work and this practice for many, many years still need to return to source. It's easy to get really intellectually sophisticated about spiritual principle. It's another to sit and be still, and to listen to what the divine is calling us. I came across this quote some time ago from Albert Schweitzer. In fact, I'm going to even put on glasses so I can read you the actual quote. He says, "At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us." Now, we would suggest to you that you've always had a divine spark. There is a part of us that can never, I always like to say, can never be diminished nor destroyed. The spiritual essence of who we are is who we are. And what happens, I would say, if you meet any baby in the world, you get it. Right? You just, here I am. Right? And then as we grow and evolve, we can sometimes cover that up. We can begin to believe things that aren't really so about who we are. We may we might start forming something that says I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not lovable, or whatever else we decide is true, and then that becomes our reality. And then those in our lives who we meet, who touch that place, and we feel more alive for having had the experience. Know who those people are? I think through my life of the amazing people who showed up at just the right time. I think about my 8th grade teacher when I was struggling with life and what was happening in my family and all kinds of other things that gave me a little tiny book that said Born to Win. She believed in me. We all have those people in our life. As a spiritual community, we must always remember that that is why we are here. Not only for our own growth and unfoldment, but to serve others in their fulfillment. I've had a prayer partner for many, many years. Most of you know her, Reverend Sally, and I met 8 or 9 years ago, learning how to do the mission-centric small group model of ministry. We were put together for the first exercise in this several-day intensive, which was such a wonderful experience just in itself. And and so they said, we want you to be prayer partners. Find your partner. Sally's sitting next to me. We were like, cool, let's be partners. And they said, so what we want you to do, you, who's A, who's B, you know how these work. A, tell your partner the problem. But the only word you can use is blah. Now, I want you to feel it. I want you to be emotional. But so it's blah, 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 right? Get it out. And then your prayer partner will respond in prayer with one word, which is love. Love, 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 love. That began a prayer partnership that's lasted all of these years. And there's been a lot of blah, blah, blah over the years. But we always come back to the remembrance of love. And I said to her recently, the good thing is we never go to the down place at the same time. You know, life has figured this out so that one of us has always got our act together while the other one's going through whatever we go through. News alert. Ministers are not immune from going through stuff. So, in fact, I think part of that's the calling. But that's a whole other story, right? And I think how beautiful that example was, and how when it's all said and done, we can tell the stories. Blah, 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 blah. And I find myself sometimes wanting to get into story. I'm sure none of you do that, but every once in a while I do want to do that. And I found myself not too long ago get really tired. I've been sprinting 2 years straight, full on, since I got here. And so, you know, I was tired. And that's when I'm most vulnerable to my not wholeness. I get grumpy and cranky and, you know, start to think it's about them. Can you imagine such a thing? Can you imagine people do that? Right? And then gave myself the gift of being silent for 5 days. For me, that's how I rekindled my spark. Interestingly, it's fun to have an extroverted partner who is rekindled by being in engagement with other people, right? So part of the lesson of life is learn what serves you. Learn to be your own authority so that you find what you work. And so I got really still and got centered and got rested and was like, okay, good. I'm back. I feel like a normal person again. I really looked at this whole idea of being, that value of really doing self-care. I have no regrets. When you start a new work, there is, like anything new, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but, you sign up for a job, and they hand you a job description, and you take the job, and then you find out the real job. Right? Or I remember, going through real estate classes at one point to get a real estate license as I was sidelining and being the minister's spouse mostly, but, trying to create an income. And, you get to go through all this stuff. You learn about riparian rights and all this wonderful stuff. And then you have to learn how to do a real estate business, which is not covered in all of that stuff, right? So most of us have that story. If we've studied for something and then you get into the real world and you realize this is the real world. So having done this since before dirt, I knew, I knew it'll be what it is, and I'm going to keep my heart open. But I was in a seminar not too long ago because I find it's helpful for me to go and get my energies enthused. And the speaker was speaking about a lot of things, but one of the things that my big takeaway, he talked about this idea of event. So the event is whatever has happened, plus no story equals no problem. Event plus story equals problem. And several different things. So, I've just been really working with that because I notice sometimes I want to, or others want to, make up a story. Instead of just saying, here's the event. Oh, look, a tree fell over. It knocked out 2 lamps. We'll handle it. But, or somebody wrecks a car. And we think it's about the car. When what's really invaluable is, are you okay? Right? So I just say this because I think often it's easy to get around a story. And so I just like to check out just what's the event? Breathe through it. Be with what is. Keep your heart open. So I'm really setting this intention and practicing about keeping my heart open no matter what's going on in the world. Whether I agree or disagree, whether I think I'm right and they're wrong, or they're wrong and I'm right, those are flip side of it, basically, right? That it's that recognition that in that state of being available to Spirit, in this moment, in this breath, in this sacred space, is where I find grace. I'm mindful of how much of the world wants to pursue this destination. I call it someday I'll. That someday I'll be rich, be happy, be thin, be whatever, right? When this is the moment. This is the moment. This is the moment for the miracle. This is the moment for the healing. This is the moment for the realization of who we are. So, as Bill said, we faced some challenges as a church. Basically, I was kind of calculating that, doing this for about 35 years. 30 as a licensed minister. Before that, as a youth minister and doing all the preparation. I've yet to be in the church that had too much money or too many volunteers. I'm holding the intention, like, oh, we don't know what to do with all this money, right? We haven't done that. I haven't done that, So I have some experience, and here's the facts. We can make up a story about it. We can just say, these are the facts. What is the truth? And the truth is, we are abundant beings right here and right now. Now, I know sometimes it makes people nervous when we speak about money in church. I know that. I'm one of them. Life blessed me growing up in a family that never talked about money. And then I got into a job where I had to talk about money. And not only my money, but yours. That was a blessing, right? I have yet to go to a movie with anybody and have them say, I can't believe they'd ask us for money to go in here. All they want is my money. Or the grocery store. How many times do they ask you for money when you go to the grocery store? Every single time, no matter how cute you are. So when we have that conversation, that's part of why I like doing a commitment program. It's just like, you know what you're going to give us. We'd like to know so we can be good stewards. No story around that, just we want to be good stewards. We don't love you more or less, we're just trying to be good stewards. And so when we get that out of the way, then we can get on with why we're really here, which is to learn and to grow and to love and to serve and to have a little fun along the way. Isn't that good? So grace is this wonderful state. There's a quote I love from Yogananda. He says, it's beautiful to think that the Lord loves us all equally. A visitor said to him, but it seems unjust that he should care for a sinner as much as a saint. Yogananda said, is a diamond less valuable because it is covered with mud? You see, God sees all the changeless beauty of our souls. He knows we are not our mistakes. In developing spiritual community, in being in this practice, we are called first to find our own spark, our own divinity, to do our spiritual work, to uncover what may have gotten covered with some mud along the way. The diamond is never diminished by the mud. So we are uncovering that. And then we are serving each other in remembering that truth, in knowing that truth. As our compassionate care ministries are unfolding, we're talking about our job in the ministry of prayer is not to fix problems. When I worked in the ministry of prayer in Los Angeles, this was CSL, they said, we are not here to fix body parts. We're here to know a spiritual truth and reality. We are here to reveal that spiritual truth. My teacher said, there's nothing to be healed, there's but a truth to be revealed. So we are not fixing our money situation, we're revealing our abundance. We're not fixing our bodies, we're revealing wholeness. We're not fixing relationships, we're revealing love. Do you see how different that is? So when I move into story, then I think I need to change something in the outer. And sometimes we do need to change things in the outer. Right? Some things are not acceptable. But too often we start there and think, I'll pray later. I've discovered, pray first. Get clarity. And then if that which needs to be addressed in the world needs to be addressed, let us address it. The most valuable thing we can do is develop our spiritual practice. Is that shocking? You ever heard anybody say that before? I had a privilege. For about 3 years, I served for Centers for Spiritual Living. We had a program, the Minister Mentor Program. And so that was sort of my service to the larger community, which was to enhance a program that was in place and to match seasoned ministers with new ministers so that they had a place of mentorship for when people show up for the job and it's not like what you talked about in school. What do you do? And it was a great joy to witness that beauty that happens when we honor each other, when we honor the wisdom. And so turns out, the greatest gift of that whole program was for the mentors. The new ministers didn't even know what they didn't know. Till something happened that slapped them beside the head and they went, "Ooh, I didn't know that." Yep, welcome. Right? But the ministers who were serving in that capacity of teacher and guide and love remembered that they know some stuff, that we have experience. I know many of you serve others in many beautiful and wonderful ways, and what we all know is the beauty of being of service is that we are served. The beauty of being in prayer for others when we're praying affirmatively is that we have to know that spiritual truth for ourselves. I'm always fascinated how what shows up in requests for prayer for me often is some reflection of something that happens to be going on in my life. And so I say, oh, apparently I need to remember this spiritual truth. The Fillmores gave us this body of work about understanding that we are spiritual beings. They interpreted the Bible in new ways. Myrtle gave us fabulous principles through her healing letters that we might practice for ourselves how to be spiritually evolved souls, how to live from the inside out, how to live from spirit into form. For myself and for all of my, part of why I wanted to talk about all these ministers is sometimes if we're not careful as ministers, we let our spiritual practice not be as important because we're so darn busy doing spiritual community. And they are not the same. So my note to myself and to you, as long as you're all here, is let's keep our spiritual practice in front of us. Individually, collectively, God has given us an opportunity to evolve, to grow, to become, to experience more of ourselves. We're just the ones that call it a problem. You notice that? Every problem that faces me in my life is just some area where I haven't revealed the fullness of the divine. And when I remember that, I get less busy about trying to solve problems and more busy about knowing the truth. Being in deep practice where I know the truth. And as the Master said, that is what sets us free. The first law, we haven't talked about the laws of co-creation. The first law of co-creation is the law of gratitude. Being grateful for what we have. Being grateful for who we are. Being grateful for the gifts that we have been given, even when they don't appear to be gifts yet. To be grateful. To name it as good. The Bible tells us in all things give thanks. And when we are in that state of gratitude, then the walk with grace is simple and easy. We see miracles all around us. Right? They were always there. I haven't talked about this idea of bringing heaven to earth, bringing a state of consciousness to this dimension. Sometimes people will say, well, how do you differ from traditional Christianity? And I sometimes, depending on who I'm having the conversation with, will say, we believe that heaven and hell are not destinations. They are states of consciousness that we can and do experience right here, according to our ability to perceive a greater reality. When I look at the teachings of Jesus, I see him speaking to that idea. Neither low here or low there. But the kingdom, the divine consciousness, is within us. So let us continue to rekindle our spark. Let us be there for each other to help rekindle theirs. Let us continue to move forward, loving, growing, serving. Let us continue to pray. I'll start. Simply inviting us, again, taking a deep breath, breathing in gratitude. Grateful. Famous saying from Meister Eckhart that if the only prayer you ever gave was thank you, that would be enough. And so we do give thanks. We look to the master teacher who began his prayer in thanksgiving. Abba, I know you hear me always, and I am grateful. I am grateful for each person in this room. I am grateful for a presence of the divine that is expressing itself in, through, and as each one of us, and collectively into something much greater than what any one of us could bring. I am grateful that we live in the times in which we live so that we might contribute to the healing and the revelation of truth. As I speak this word of truth this day, from that grateful heart, I am reminded that that which we seek is already provided, awaiting our recognition of it. When we seek healing, we're simply revealing the wholeness that exists at the spiritual level and allowing that to be expressed and revealed as health and well-being and vitality. I am remembering that we are revealing abundance in our lives by participating in divine flow, joyously giving, graciously receiving of this divine bounty. I am reminded that there is only one truth, and that truth is love. There is only one power. That power is love. And so we fully and freely forgive ourselves, each other, knowing that it is that which sets us free, that which opens within us the higher dimensions of understanding and awareness. And so I give thanks this day. I bless each person. I bless this spiritual community, this divine idea unfolding through us and as us. I extend that blessing to our brothers and sisters around the planet. I am reminded that there is only one race, and that is the human race. I'm sensing and feeling a movement towards a greater understanding and awareness. I'm sensing and feeling a planet at peace, knowing a world that works for all, where compassion is the natural order of things, that joy is unfolding. And as always, I bless all priests, rabbis, ministers, teachers of all faiths, for I celebrate the many pathways to the one. I invite you to take a deep breath and know that whatever challenge you may be facing is an opportunity for the revelation of God through you. Let us bless that too. giving thanks for all of these blessings and so many more. I simply allow it to be so. And through the power of the living Christ, it goes forth to be a blessing to all. In joy and gratitude, then, it is so, as together we say, and so